Dolphins, of course, took Skylar Thompson before the 49ers took Brock Purdy. I guess because on top of it, Skylar Thompson adds the benefit of being a 37-year-old rookie. So, you not only drafted a guy who wasn't very good in college, but, he's got a very limited future because he's about to start collecting Social Security.
Yeah. A few picks later, the 49ers grab a guy that's leading them to the Super Bowl with a flawless record. And so far has looked as polished as Tom Brady and his, I don't
We'll
mean
get into this with the big board, but there's a lot of just this whole NFC Championship, AFC Championship weekend is just a big kick in the balls to Miami Dolphins fans. There's a lot of that going on in these two games.
The time. Wake up with Defo, joined by Lubie. Welcome to the Defo Show.
All right, we had to reset the game clock and also the play clock as a couple of technical difficulties prevented us from getting on time. But we're here on Appeal Yourself Off the Mat Monday. Good morning, everybody. And following a couple of conference championship games, one a complete dud, and the other was borderline thrill in Manila, was it not? A very entertaining game, that Cincinnati-Kansas City game, because you didn't know what the outcome was going to be. It looked like it was going to be a blowout early on, Kansas City. And this is typical of the Chiefs, where they're dominating the play early in the ball game. Entire first quarter is all Chiefs. I think they had like 110 yards, and the Bengals had 0. And yet they're only up 6-0. And you're thinking, I don't know. This is one of those teams that lets other teams hang around. And that's exactly what happened. Joe Burrow, you have to give Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals, Zach Taylor, a little bit of credit for making whatever it was, a quick adjustment on the offensive line. They're getting annihilated in the early going. 4 sacks on Joe Burrow, and it looks like this is going to be, as we said, blowout city. And then by the time we got to the second quarter, all of a sudden, they weren't getting to him anymore. And he's completing just a monster series of passes to, those two receivers. We talked about Waddle and Tyreek Hill, and they're outstanding, and they had a great year for the Miami Dolphins. Speaking of the Dolphins being left in the dust once again. But T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, wow. I mean, those two guys are a hell of a combination. And it turns out it's always great when you get like an unsung hero, somebody that comes out of nowhere and ends up lighting it up on a championship stage. I guess, you could say Raheem Mostert. Brett Tessler is going to join us later on. Yep. Sort of did that. I mean, he was giving indications that he was capable during a regular season. I don't know that was the case with Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Who the hell was that, man? Where did he find this guy?
He's on the Packers.
He made some sensational catches in that game and huge plays. I mean, he was extremely instrumental in that scoring drive towards the end that gave the Chiefs their 17th point as they get the 20th point, and they end up winning it 23-20. I couldn't help but think of Shun Fujimoto. Would you recall any reason for me to bring up Shun Fujimoto? Mike Lubie Lubitz. And by the way, how are you, Lubie? How was your weekend?
Outside of the early technical issues, I'm doing well. The weekend was filled with a lot of relaxation and some family. How was your weekend?
I didn't do much. You know what? Pretty quiet. I did a couple of walks of life and watched a lot of football and sports, and that was about it. Outside of that, really didn't get engaged in too many activities, but I had a lot of fun yesterday watching those ball games. The first one was a snooze. I actually fell asleep in the second half. I figured, let me rest up so I can watch the second game in its entirety without even being tempted to doze off and take a nap. And that was not a game that was going to put you into a coma like the first one did. It all went out the window right away, and it just shows you. Why didn't the 49ers consider signing Colin Kaepernick?
God,
racist bastards. I mean, let's bring up that debate, huh? Is that applicable? Shun Fujimoto, do you get the reference? No, you don't. Does anybody out there know what I'm talking about? Jim Sarney would know, right? Shun Fujimoto was the Japanese gymnast who the Japanese team, and I forget, it might have been like the 76 Olympics, going all the way back to Sugar Ray Leonard. Might have been that year. I was somewhere, I believe, in the 70s, and the guy's on the still rings, which no Jew can master the still rings, right? Can you even conceive of holding yourself up on that iron cross? You know that move? Did you have gymnastics ever? Did you have to take that in gym class?
I hated it. That was horrendous. No.
I'm horrible at that. Horrible. Yeah.
Not good.
I mean, I would have to consider myself. I'm not really overwhelmingly athletic, but I'm good at sports. Okay, I'm a decent game player. All right, I have just enough moves to be okay in terms of competing with other guys that might be more athletic. All right, basketball, baseball, football, whatever. Well, it was always okay. Even out there on a tennis court, can manufacture a game, and against a really good guy, I'm going to get blown out. But against guys that are just average Joe Schmenks that are out there playing, the usual hackers, I'm okay. I hold my own. I probably have a winning record lifetime in all sports. Is that possible? To have a winning record? I mean, in every game that you've ever played. Can you think about that, people? Recreational games. Do you have a winning record lifetime? That'd be interesting to trace. I'm talking about half court basketball, one on one, whatever you've ever done. Softball. Do you have a winning record lifetime? What do you think, Lubie? Do you have a winning record lifetime in games that you've played? Winning record. Were you a winning player?
I'm like street ball, yeah. I don't know about
I'm
record.
talking any sport. I don't, no, organized, whatever, recreational.
Probably not.
Total games played.
Probably
Are
not.
you above 500?
I would say probably not.
I have to think I'm above 500 lifetime in all games ever played. But gymnastics was not one of my strong points, and we used to try to write some kind of medical excuse. I was very good at forging my mother's signature, and for some reason they never double checked it. Right, even the sharpest of coaches that knew you were full of shit wouldn't in gym class cross check your mother's signature with the signature that you signed. That would you please excuse my son Jeffrey from gym class today? He has a problem, with his foot or whatever. All right. And the guy would look at you like, what the fuck is this? Right? You knew there was gymnastics today. Pommel horse, forget it. I couldn't do anything on that. Balance beam, forget it. No good. High bar. Imagine a swinging old Jew like me. I mean, just forget about that, right? Doing what is that called where they do the big spin, and they go, well, there's a name for that move in the high bar.
All of them have names. I don't know the name.
Parallel bars. I mean, I could barely get my legs over to straddle them. You get up there and you're shaking, and then whoosh. So anyway, it's Shun Fujimoto is on the Japanese Olympic team, and I think they needed him to like do something decent on like the last performance of the team competition to win the gold medal. Okay, but the guy's got a broken leg. Everybody knows this. So he's on the still rings, right? And he's doing one of those iron crosses, and the arms are holding it together. And then you realize, holy shit! You know how they do that, where they then kind of like, what would they call that? They kind of kip their way up and get into a different position, and then do a triple somersault with 1 1/2 twists going off of the rings, while the rings are supposed to stay like perfectly still. Get the fuck out of here! Nobody can do this. Least of all, I don't mean to. Were there ever any great? Does your Israeli team even field a gymnastics team? They didn't have gymnastics in yeshiva.
Oh my God.
When we were hanging out there. Anyway, this Shun Fujimoto with a broken leg. Everybody knows he's got a broken leg, but he has to do a dismount and he has to stick it. Okay, holy carry strug. This guy has to come off the rings, which fairly decent distance above the ground. It's not like they're like an inch away. I mean, this guy's going to be doing a flip from about, I don't know, what would it be, like 5-6 feet up in the air? Unbelievable. And he does it and he sticks it, and everybody knows that his leg is going to be like just an immense pain when he lands this landing. That he does end up performing very well, and Japan goes on and wins the gold medal. I think he might have even won a gold medal in the rings. Shun Fujimoto. Well, was that not Patrick Mahomes yesterday on that run that set up the field goal? Where, I mean, all options are closed. The only chance he has is to take off and run. Now, he hasn't planted and sprinted the entire game, and you could see where he was becoming more and more impaired by the ankle injury as the game progressed. It wasn't like it shut him down, but you could see he was starting to limp off the field. He wasn't able to really plant and throw as well as he was earlier in the ball game. Had all kinds of different problems. And he has to take off on this run. Now you know that it's not going to be easy, right? So he runs, he gets the 8 yards, still out of field goal range, and then, wow. Yeah, I mean, you talk about a mistake that's going to be a haunting one throughout the offseason. This guy was having a great game, too. Joseph Asai was having a great game. I mean, he was a big factor why Cincinnati was in the ball game from the defensive side. He was all over the Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs the entire ball game. And then he makes just an absolutely colossal blunder maybe one of the worst penalties we've ever seen, as Mahomes is out of bounds by 2 yards,
Yep.
shoves him into the bench. He goes crashing into the bench himself and hurts himself, and he gives him 15 yards for Butker to go ahead and kick the game-winning field goal. Otherwise, it's not happening. That game's going to overtime, and it's every bit as possible that the Cincinnati Bengals own the Kansas City Chiefs once again. So a lot was contingent on that one run, and if you have to give him Mahomes credit, right? I mean, he knew he was going to eat it, and he did, and ended up making a play that would have fallen short. I mean, what would they have done with 8 seconds to go, Libby? They couldn't throw it into the middle of the field. They would have had to try and throw an out pattern of some sort, but everybody in the stadium was going to be aware of that. They couldn't run the ball a lick anyway, the entire ball game, and they didn't have time to run the ball because they had no timeouts left.
No, they would have. Look, first of all, I think they would have added time, and because there was no need to, in case he didn't fight. Remember, the minute you cross out of bounds, the clock stops. That's not how that run did not take 11 seconds. So
took him a while to take off, though. That play was taking
a
while to transpire.
Well, because he can't move, but I think they would add a couple seconds. They got it to 10 seconds, and at 10 seconds, you can work the sidelines.
You can make one play, yeah.
It was a guaranteed no. They would have kicked the field goal. Butker. That's what's weird is they were acting like Butker doesn't have a leg. I know in pregame,
but 57 is a big difference in 5-degree temperatures with wind chill factors and all of that.
It's not guaranteed. Like that one, that was a 45-yarder that he nailed. Like it's not guaranteed, but they would have got a kickoff no matter what. Mahomes would have either completed a pass going out of bounds or just thrown it away. Like he's Mahomes. Mahomes was not making a field goal off. So I think I don't know if they would have made it, but people going the other way, well, oh my God, the Bengals would have won. No, that's not.
Well, you couldn't say that they would have won because obviously they didn't, number one. And number two, at the best, they were going to go into overtime. They did gather most of the momentum in that ball game, and it was good of Mahomes to keep on. The defense kind of kept Kansas City in the game.
Yes.
They had a couple of picks and created turnovers against Joe Burrow. That was good. They actually had great coverage on both Chase and T. Higgins, and yet they kept making catches against double coverage. I mean, the touchdown catch by Higgins was absolutely a stroke of brilliance. Why can't they say that the guy just out-jumped the other guy? Why does he always have to be high-pointing the ball? This is all Miyake and, just bizarre football vernacular when they got tired of saying the same thing over and over again. Now, having called a lot of boxing, I mean, it's somewhat repetitive, right? There are only so many things that happen in a boxing match. But, when you start getting overly creative, like your man, Mauro Ranallo, where the second round, he calls it the second stanza, the second frame. It's like, it's a round. That's what they call it. It's, round two. That's simple. I mean, don't make it complicated. The guy leaps up, makes a catch. Did he high point the ball? I guess technically, if you really wanted to get into some kind of existential philosophical discussion about it, oh yeah, I pointed the ball there, Jean Paul. Unbelievable. As if you were talking to Sartre himself. He was a depressed human being, wasn't he, man? He thought life was absolutely meaningless, Lubie, which he may be right. Anyway, and this is great because it reminds me, and I could probably calculate the year, but wow, I mean, is it really Super Bowl 57 coming up? And by the way, in case you weren't aware, Rihanna is going to be doing a halftime show.
They've never advertised a halftime show so much.
How much are they paying this woman?
They must be paying her a lot because usually it's free. It's just a promotion. But this can't.
Yeah, we got the Hot Chili Peppers going to be on at halftime. Nobody even mentions it, right? Nothing. You don't even know who the halftime show is going to be. I have never seen a halftime show so heavily promoted as the Rihanna appearance. All of those halftime shows for the most part are pretty spectacular. I actually thought the rap thing last year was pretty good, no? That kind of came off well, right? When Eminem got up there. I mean, even I'm not a big rap guy, but, I thought they did a good job kind of, demonstrating that this was, an art form when a lot of people thought it was just a bunch of guys grabbing their balls and, using the N-word a lot. And that was it. And telling you to go out and rape women. And, well, I don't want to get into it with Roger Goodell. That's a Mushnick thing. But the Super Bowl then set up. Which game you want to get into first, Libby? Because the first game was a disaster. It's almost not worthy of discussion.
I mean, what is there to say? Once Purdy got hurt, like I didn't realize that they didn't have an actual Josh Jones.
He's going to need Tommy John surgery, possibly. He's got a ruptured ulnar nerve in his elbow.
Was it ruptured, Purdy?
Well, they don't know the severity of it, but it's either going to be like a 6-week proposition or it's Tommy John, my friend. Unbelievable. So that story comes to an abrupt end if that's the case. Yeah. And you can't. I mean, what do you do next year? You have Trey Lance, who you drafted very highly, and really hasn't sniffed the field much. Jimmy G, you would have to think gone again. No, but do you bring him back now? If you're the 49ers, I mean, this is already getting ahead of ourselves into next year. We haven't even got to the Super Bowl yet, but it certainly creates a bit of a predicament. I thought I saw John Brody being dug up. They were exhuming the body of John Brody at halftime.
Young was tweeting, I'm available.
Steve Young, yeah. It's like we thought Marino was going to be coming in there in that Dolphin game. When they were getting shellacked there by the New York Jets and couldn't muster up much of an offense with the aforementioned Skylar Thompson at quarterback. But the Purdy story comes to an end with an abrupt thud, huh? Unbelievable. And I don't know how he was going to fare during the course of the game because Philadelphia's pass rush is pretty immense. And that leads me, I brought up this Super Bowl game between the Indianapolis Colts and the Chicago Bears. It was here in Miami. Remember, it was a terrible Super Bowl also.
Yeah, the one a few years
I believe the Colts, did they win with Peyton Manning? That Super Bowl? Yes, and that had to be about 15 years ago, no?
He did nothing. That was actually the one time where the Colts defense carried them.
Yeah, the Bears were horrible in that game.
It's Grossman.
And the Bears were who we thought they were. They were awful.
They sucked in the game.
But leading up to the game, and the 2 weeks leading up to the Super Bowl, a lot of people in the media, it became commonplace for guys that were in the media like us to complain about the job that we had because, it's hard to kill 2 weeks with nothing but like maybe a couple of little stories. And everybody thought that this was going to be a Colts blowout. And the only storyline that I remember being overwhelmingly emphasized during those 2 weeks was Dwight Freeney going to play? Dwight Freeney, the great defensive end with the spin move. Out of Syracuse, by the way, Lubie, one of the rare Syracuse products that has, I guess they've had, their success in the pros, but they haven't had that much success on the collegiate field since Schwartzwalder was there. It's been a long time. Anyway, they had like a camera on Dwight Freeney's ankle. They put like, this was, when what is that called? The GoPro? It might have been in its infant stages. And literally every step this guy took was being analyzed. Oh, man, did you see that? He stuck his toes out to the right there. It looks like he's going to be okay. And it turned out it didn't matter because the Bears were horrible in that ball game, and it was one of the duller Super Bowls in history. Was it also pouring out that night? Wasn't that the night that Roger Goodell decided that, hey, you know what? It rained one night in Miami out of 365. Why don't we never give them another Super Bowl again? No matter what Stephen Ross says or Izinga, we'll shut these guys out. They could bid anything. They could give us zillions of dollars. It could be like Trump campaign donors. Just, here you go, Donnie. Spend it any way you want. And they weren't going to bring the Super Bowl back here until finally, I don't know, did Stephen Ross sell his soul to the devil to get that Super Bowl here a few years ago? I think so. I don't know what concessions they made, but they had to be considerable, you looked at the stance that the NFL had taken about the city of Miami. What's their fascination with Arizona, by the way? And that is not a great place to have a Super Bowl, I don't believe. Too spread out, huh?
It's the temperature. That's all it is it's a sunny area.
Isn't that a dome stadium? Is that not a dome? Yeah, it's a dome stadium.
I'm talking about, well, they don't worry about the game. I'm talking about like for the people coming in and the people in there. And
having a good time, yeah. But there's no ocean. There's cactus, man. I mean, unless you're squeezing mezcal out of some cactus in the middle of the desert there's not much going on there. I guess they like the big executives to come into town and play golf. They have some interesting golf courses. If you're in the rough on one of those Arizona golf courses, if you're playing golf around the Phoenix area, I got to play on one of those media events that they stage. There is no rough. You have the tee box, and then it's desert all the way to the green. Desert. Remember when Tiger Woods was in that thing? And they were trying to play golf at night? Tiger Woods was in those crazy challenges they were putting up, and they would like line up cars along the fairway to put the lights on, like you used to play basketball at the park after they turn the lights off. The lights would go off at 10 o'clock at the local park, and then all of a sudden everybody brought their car up, and you'd still play, even though you couldn't see the basket. It was kind of like that. Remember, and Tiger would be playing, and he would be impaled to a cactus, and they'd still be trying to figure out how it was that he was the greatest human being on the face of the earth. Anyway, the first game, a disaster right from the start. Too much pressure on Purdy. He gets hurt right away. He goes out. They bring in this guy, Josh Johnson. I thought he was a pitcher. Well, was he not for the Marlins?
He had a Josh Johnson. The Bucks also drafted years ago Josh Johnson. He's now played for like 10 to 12 teams. The guy's horrendous.
Well, and he hasn't done much. I don't know that he's horrendous. He just hasn't really had that many shots. I mean, obviously, nobody has taken a belief in him to think that he can be their starter and savior. But I think he had thrown 90-something passes in 2018, was the most prolific that he ever was, and had completed about 52 of 91, something like that. I wrote it down here somewhere, and that was it. I mean, that was his career. 2018, he was 52 for 91 for the Washington. I guess they were still the Redskins at the time. But, a journeyman guy that drifts around that you don't even know is on the roster. Did you know he was on San Francisco's roster? I didn't. Had no idea. And he has to come in, and he looked like the fourth-string quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers, did he not?
Yes.
Who has a fourth-string quarterback? Nobody.
No one. You barely have to.
Yeah, I mean, they were dead in the water there. And then, the last 2 minutes of the first half, I mean, that was it. The Eagles get a legitimate drive going and score. They go up 14-7. And then inside of 2 minutes, Shanahan has him in the shotgun. He gets hit in the face with the ball. They fumble, and naturally, Philadelphia recovers around the 20. And before you know it, game over, lights out. Flowers are in the punch. Start singing the party's over, right? Get Don Meredith out there. Because once it became 21-7, you realize that there's no chance that San Francisco's coming back in this ballgame. Combined, though, I mean, Philadelphia didn't have to do anything in this game. I mean, basically, they were just out there on the field.
Like Andy's like, it wouldn't matter. It would have. To me, the Eagles are massively overrated. The Eagles did nothing. They're playing a team with no offense. And they should get freedom on offense. They were horrendous. Like Jalen Hurts is the guy I thought he was. Like I am fully confident in all.
Boy, he missed a guy and it was wide open in there. What's the guy's name? Is that Wilson?
I don't know.
The wide receiver. They're a great wide receiver for Philadelphia.
Brown.
Oh, Brown. Yeah. Look, I'm thinking of the Jets.
He's a nice quarterback if he can run. But when they took the run game away from him early, he sucked. So to me, the Eagles didn't win that game. The Niners had no. You have to be able to score 3. Like they couldn't.
No, the Niners had zero chance. I mean, even at the end there, it was a joke when they brought Purdy back. Which I mean, if the guy needs Tommy John surgery, possibly, then what the hell? You can't ask him to throw the ball 50 yards down the field there.
No, they didn't try. They ran it like 5 plays in a row. It was like 3rd and 7, and they were running a draw. Like,
yeah. I mean, down 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're looking at overall, and Philadelphia is installed as a 2-point favorite over Kansas City early on. I thought it was going to be more points, but maybe the rest of the world was also, as you were, equally unimpressed with Philadelphia's effort. But I mean, I don't know that you can gauge it, right? It's kind of like, you get into some kind of a match where the opponent is just clearly off, and you win, but you don't always look great doing it. It happens, right? Where the other team is just giving you nothing, so... And San Francisco's defense was good throughout the season. It's not like they were going against some slouch defense, the Philadelphia Eagles. Combined, though, I mean, what was it? It was 38-7 in the first game against the Giants and 31-7 in this one. 69-14 in 2 playoff games. Against, you would have to say that with no quarterback and no chance to throw the football, San Francisco was less than a mediocre team.
What are you gonna do?
Yeah, I mean, they may as well have been the Houston Texans coming in there for a playoff game, special appearance. All right, a lot to discuss here on the program, and we have a lot going on the show, so we'll get to it. Brett Tessler, the agent of the Stars, going to be with us, and we'll get his opinion on what's going on and a bunch of other things that are happening. The Dolphins made a hire, Vic Fangio, right? The former coach, who's the head coach there. The Denver Broncos had a very failed experience there as he was sub 500. And as I recall, a lot of people thought, what is this old buzzard doing as a head coach? Didn't seem like a really wise choice, especially with the trend to go with these young guns and these analytic guys and the Brandon Staley's of the world and Sean McVay's who have had a mixed bag of success also. Although Zach Taylor, I have immense respect for this guy.
I know he's
you could say that the officiating was not necessarily even-handed in the game, although when they did replays of some of the penalties that were called against the Cincinnati Bengals, they had that repeat third down. That was ugliness. That came out of nowhere. I mean, how lacking of control of a championship game? Get me Mills Lane. Dig up Mills Lane. I mean, how lacking of control were these officiating crews?
Both games were horrendous. I was rooting for the Chiefs, so I didn't mind that they were getting calls.
Wow.
The first game, it didn't end up mattering because, again, if you can't get 3 points, but early in the game, it was tight, and they called.
Oh, you're talking about the 49ers, yeah.
Yes, they called a lot of penalties.
Oh, they got hammered by penalties.
And then they would show the replay. That's my problem. At least when they would show versus Bengals, like, dang, he did grab him. They showed the replay, and it would be like an old. Everyone was praising Olsen. I thought he sounded like a moron. He was saying a lot of stuff that was like Aikman-esque, where he would be like,
Greg Olsen, you know what? Very likable guy.
He's
I've
nice.
met him a few times. He does a lot of, great things. Was a real, NFL Man of the Year candidate. And always has been, had his head on straight out of the University of Miami. He had a really nice career in the pros. But he's just schlubbering as a color analyst. He is trying too hard to have something to say about everything. I mean, and it gets to the point of just being annoying. It really does. All of this, and it's all technical analysis. And you're like, come on, Greg, just let a play go. Let the game breathe a little bit, huh? Give me a fucking break.
People were hailing him, and I'm like, I don't mind him, but he's saying things that are wrong. Like they would show a replay, and the defender had the arm, wasn't even grabbing him.
Yeah.
They were within the 5 yards. They both had arms on each other. Then when he went to make the break, he actually released and then made a play on the ball, and it was 100% clean. There was no penalty. Anyone could have seen that. And I was like, oh, there it is. And I'm like, there's what? Nothing happened.
As likable a guy as he is, I think he's trying very hard. Obviously knows the game of football, played, has a lot of experience. Seems like a guy that would have absorbed a lot, be able to communicate what was going on the field. Some of his technical analysis is good. I would put him way down on the list of an already weak field of NFL color analysts. Yeah, why is this job so difficult to find somebody who has a little bit of personality and isn't constantly bombarding you with things that, after a while, this mumbo jumbo becomes meaningless. It is. It's Mike Mayock all over again.
100%.
When a guy is constantly talking to you about the A gap and the Z gap and the this and the that, tell me what the hell these guys might be thinking out there. Predict a play or two. Tell me a trend that you've seen that so sticks out that you can almost forecast what's going to happen the rest of the game, and you're not getting that, right? I mean, from a lot of these guys, I don't know about Romo either. I mean, but Romo, as much as people are taking the other side with Tony Romo's commentary, saying he's just a babbling fool, shines over Greg Olsen in that category in terms of providing some kind of insight into what might actually be transpiring in the minds of the players as they're out there on the field, or the coaching staff for that matter. And just spewing praise on Andy Reid all day. I mean, please, enough of that, right? Look, we know he's a good coach. Our friend Dave Lewan had something on Facebook saying, calling this the Andy Reid Bowl, the Super Bowl, is insulting completely to the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, the guy hasn't coached there in 10 fucking years. We know he coached the Eagles. They let him go after a long, successful tenure because he wasn't winning championships.
It was not.
And, he got to Kansas City. And you know what? He's had his share of, stuff happen at moments of truth that weren't particularly favorable also. And then finally, look, he's got Patrick Mahomes, who, held up and acquitted himself very well, considering that the guy was gimping around. I mean, had a really nice ball game statistically, and they couldn't run the ball a lick either.
Oh, no.
Against the Cincinnati Bengals, they were horrible. My man Freddie Pacheco was getting shut out in this game.
I'm like, that's what you meant when you were saying Freddie Pacheco.
Freddie Pacheco, yeah. What were his stats on Mahomes? 29 out of 43, a couple of touchdowns, and El Zipperoni when it came to interceptions. That was big.
I mean, the fumble he had was utterly atrocious, and they could have put the game away. If he doesn't have that weird fumble.
And that's a Kansas City trait. I mean, I didn't hear Romo mention that how many times have you seen Kansas City this year, and they let these other teams hang in games when it looks like they're about to go in for the knockout blow? They're driving the ball, and they were moving the ball pretty consistently throughout the ball game. I mean, they really didn't have that much trouble, at least moving the ball and getting favorable drives going. But here it looks like they're going in for what's going to be the knockout blow, didn't it? Before Mahomes, has this thing hit him right in the hands, and then he gives him one of these schmutz throws. And they go, no, you dropped it there, Patrick. Yeah, unbelievable. That at least redeemed the day, though, from television viewing standpoint, because that Philadelphia game, that was hard to take. I've been to funerals that were more exciting than the first game of the doubleheader.
It was just like, and then you're like, is Johnson hurt too? The same way? I'm like,
Yeah, concussion. I mean, he got one of those Tua plays
I'm like, well, that's
right
the
off the turnbuckle.
thing. But it started by the guy hitting his arm, and I was like, when did this
Yeah.
become a thing that happens all the time? How often do you see a guy hit an arm? Like, that's not a normal thing. I'm like, what's going on?
Unbelievable, yeah. I mean, you look, they certainly had no reason to be ashamed of themselves, San Francisco, after what happened to them in that game. And then the penalties were, I mean, some of them might have been outrageously,
It was every time.
favorable to Philadelphia, but then even when they had like the most remote shot of getting back in the ball game, they got a roughing the kicker call on a punt, and that was that. But when you saw all of those handoffs from Brock Purdy, that was, and McCaffrey comes in there to try and quarterback the team, I was screaming, "You guys, it serves you right, man. Kaepernick should have been on the roster."
There you go.
Well, we'll see what Brett Tessler thinks about that. That's coming up in just a few moments here on the show. And then John Congemi going to be doing a little Pigskin Playbook. A lot to talk about with John, with the Super Bowl on tap now and all of the developments from yesterday. And then some other stories swirling around the NFL, including Adam Schefter is putting out rumor after rumor, is he not? I mean, this guy's starting forest fires. But I would think that, Green Bay might be wise. I mean, can they move Aaron Rodgers?
I guess I think that's done at this point. I mean, what do
Yeah.
you're in a rebuild. Like, I mean, you are.
Yeah,
So,
there's no point bringing them back for another year. If even though they came within an eyelash of making the playoffs this year, it did seem like there was a major detachment there. Like the dynamic is just not there. Where Rodgers is the face of the franchise and the main impetus behind everything that happens, but there seems to have been a disconnect, not only with management, but with the players as well. And it just looks like he's sort of distant. He was always kind of aloof, but you always thought, wow, I mean, this guy's really into making the Packers go. But I don't know that that's the case anymore. 1 year somewhere with Aaron Rodgers, I think, would be a lot better though than 1 year with Tom Brady. No.
Oh yeah, Rodgers is still younger. I think he has something left. I think Brady's done, and I don't understand why he can't. I get it. These players.
He will be your Dolphin quarterback next year.
No,
I'll ask Congemi about that.
They've said
No?
it no to everything you have to say. I don't. It's some like he's 45. Like, it's okay, Tom.
Yeah.
Okay. Like,
Well,
yeah.
Go ahead.
You have a $350 million deal just sitting there.
Yeah.
He's going to be horrendous at it, but he can't be worse than. I mean, he's going to be just as bad as all the other guys, and they'll pay him $350 million.
Unbelievable. All right, let's make a move here. Hialeah Park, they had a handicapping tournament yesterday,
Nice.
and where it is, it went extremely well, so that was good. And boxing coming up the end of February 24th. There's a date on that. Circle that on your social calendar. Guillermo Rigondeaux, local Cuban fighter who's had a very distinguished boxing career. He started out here. I believe his first fight was, or a couple of his first early bouts were at the Magic City Casino. And then he's fought at Hialeah Park. And this guy's a talented kid, very popular with the Cuban community. And he's going to headline the card. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Looking forward to that, being out there ringside. Just a beautiful night at Hialeah Park. Then get into the casino there. Hope the Mustang is up her usual 800 because the machines are very favorable at Hialeah Park. So a lot of entertainment on tap at beautiful Hialeah Park. You have the Champion Simulcast room. That's great. Great food and drink all over the place. Poker, if that's your game, like it is for Mike Mayo. I know it's not in the neighborhood for Mayo, but I think he would enjoy playing there more than he does like the Hard Rock or some of these other places where he goes because they really run the room. I mean, top-notch professional job, everything that they do. They have great people there, and they've been with them for a long time. And you can see where that experience also blends in perfectly with their desire to infuse themselves into the community and into the hearts of their patrons. And so everybody gets a fair shake there at Hialeah Park, including with the slots in the Vegas-style casino that they have, which are paying huge jackpots all the time and keeping you in the game, right? You want to have a little fun for your entertainment dollar. You don't want to just get hit in the head with a brick like you do at some casinos when you start playing the slot machines and you're asking, who calibrated these machines and when was the last time you updated that? Because it seems like I can't even get 2 stinking cherries to pop up on this thing. All right, but you'll have a good time at Hialeah Park no matter what you're doing. It's always a festive atmosphere. They have all kinds of musical stuff and entertainment. Great for private parties also. You can inquire about that at HialeahPark.com. And don't forget, boxing coming up the end of February. We'll have some steam on that throughout the coming weeks on the show. And looking forward to being out there. And hopefully we'll see some of our friends out there at beautiful Hialeah Park. All right, Brett Tessler, the Agent of the Stars on tap. And John Congemi joins us. Brought to you by Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill at mile marker 104 of the Overseas Highway in Key Largo. And that's all happening straight ahead here on the Defo Show with Mike Lubitz. in a moment. Now that
The time.
it's 7:43.
Folks, Tony Segreto here. Let me ask you a question. What do you look for when you go out to eat? Good food, obviously, friendly atmosphere, not too loud, but good energy, reasonable prices, and a place where you feel comfortable. All those ingredients, no pun meant there, are hard to find unless you're talking about the Texas Roadhouse. You see, they encompass all of those attributes. Really, really good food, amazing atmosphere, good for a family, good for a date, or just a night out for yourself, and prices that will make you extremely happy. Their ribs, unmatched. Steaks, hand cut every day. Everything, and I mean everything, is made on site, including their incredible bread. It's the one day, folks, that you can forget about low-carb diets. Trust me when I tell you, Texas Roadhouse, your restaurant, your destination when you say, where should we go and eat tonight?
From the newly renovated sports bar to the beautiful bayside views captured at the Tiki Bar, Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill has it all. Located at mile marker 104, the Big Chill also offers waterfront dining while experiencing breathtaking sunset views of the Florida Keys. It's simply the hottest spot in the Keys to cool off. That's Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill at mile marker 104 in Key Largo. For more information, call today at 305-453-9066.
The simple pleasures of this job, the way a stadium sounds when one of my players performs well on the field, the way we are meant to protect them in health and in injury. Less work, more attention, caring for them, caring for ourselves in the games too.
The agent to the stars, the one and only Brett Tessler.
All right, welcome back to the show. And it's Appealing Yourself Off the Mat Monday here on the Defo Show on South Florida Live. Jeff DeForest and, of course, the great Mike Lubitz. And speaking of greatness, this guy's always fantastic and enjoy these sessions every week. Almost wish, we would talk basketball or hockey with us during the off season. But Brett Tessler, the agent of the stars, joins us here on the show. Well, Brett, how are you, my friend?
Doing great, Steve. Thanks.
Morning, Test Man.
All right. I mean, it was a mixed bag yesterday. I mean, the first game was Snooze City and pretty much was over and essentially was after Brock Purdy went out. I didn't even know who Josh Johnson was. Do you think that this was a haunting move for the 49ers that they didn't have Colin Kaepernick on the roster?
Well, I think the haunting thing for the 49ers is just their continued injury issues, and this is something that's just been going on for years. I don't know how one team could possibly be so unlucky, but there has literally not been one great player on their team over the last 3-4 years, including my client Raheem Mostert, who didn't have, serious or repeated injuries. And I just think, I don't know if organizationally, if that's something they need to have a look at. With a rash of quarterback injuries, I don't know if that's something systematically that they need to take a look at as it relates to scheme, protection, things like this. Because, it's one thing to have your starter go down. It's unfortunate, but from time to time it happens. Getting your having your second string quarterback go down, Garoppolo, that's a real stroke of bad luck. But then when you lose your third stringer and then your fourth stringer,
yeah,
it's just one of those things where how much can one team withstand?
Well, and it was pretty clear that was the breaking point there when Purdy went out. Now we knew this going in. I mean, the test was going to be. I mean, this was one of the narratives going into the game that Philadelphia. All of a sudden, people realized they started looking at the stats. They had 75 sacks on the season, 5 different players with 10 or more. And so they were going to put on some kind of ferocious pass rush, and you had to figure they were going to test, San Francisco right away in that category. And sure enough, I mean, Purdy had thrown like one pass prior, I think, and that was it. He might have been 2 for 2 before he got knocked out of the game. But he was going to be under pressure, and a lot of people were wondering how he would stack up to the pressure. We didn't really get that answer, but once that injury occurred, it looked like they were pretty much dead meat. Were you impressed with Philadelphia, or would you say, Brett, that you got to kind of put a line through that? That's one of those deals. I was thinking, I was watching the other night, and I know you're a big boxing fan. The first De La Hoya Julio Cesar Chavez fight, right? Chavez might have been at the end of his career, but he gets cut right away in the first round, and that was the end of the fight. I mean, it didn't really matter what happened the rest of the way, and it ended up being stopped after in the fourth round. But this looked like one of those games where Philadelphia. It's hard to judge them based on what we saw. Lubie's diminishing their performance, but did they not do just kind of what they had to do in that game? What did you think about the Philadelphia Eagles?
Well, I mean, through no fault of their own, I think they've probably had the easiest path to a Super Bowl of any team ever.
Yeah.
They completely overmatched the Giants. Giants, are a marginal team that barely sort of squeaked into the postseason. And then obviously people expected a much better game yesterday. And then when, Brock Purdy goes down there right off the bat, I think I kind of picked the Eagles to win that game anyway. And then once Purdy goes down, I think that's kind of a wrap right there. And so they kind of had a walkover into the Super Bowl, but Eagles at different points in this season have been a great, great team. I mean, I think most people, at least in the first half of the season, would say they were clearly the best team. And, Jalen Hurts obviously hasn't looked like himself. Yesterday, just an unwillingness to run like he had so much success doing at different times in the season. The throws, everything was just a little bit off yesterday with him. And so I figure that the 2 weeks between now and the Super Bowl should be incredibly valuable for that team and for him. And I expect it to be a great Super Bowl. As far as I'm concerned, it's two of the best, not just teams, but organizations that ended up making it. And I always tell you, Deep, in the end, from my perspective, in having done business with every one of these teams in the league, it's just no mystery or no coincidence why certain teams succeed and win big and ultimately end up in these positions, while other teams end up coming up short or in many cases just being perennial losers. So you've got the two best teams, in my opinion. You've got, two of the best young quarterbacks in the league from each conference, two great football cities, two teams with recent winning traditions. As a fan of the NFL, I just don't know how you could ask for more.
Officiating. What do you think, Brett? I mean, we've talked about this many times. I guess, the most horrendous conference championship game non-call, will always stand out. And that was with the Rams and the Saints, where the Saints got completely screwed. The Rams went on and won their Super Bowl under McVay. Should have been knocked out possibly in that round. I mean, you can't say for sure that they would have lost that game, but it certainly looked that way. What do you think? I mean, the 49ers were getting hammered by penalties. Our friend Jim Sarney, I don't think you can complain about that shove out of bounds on Mahomes. I mean, it's just unfortunate. I don't know if you would call it a bonehead play by a guy who was having a great game, or that he just didn't realize that he was already 3 yards out of bounds. But when you shove a quarterback, if you're going to call these ticky-tack roughing the passer calls, especially because it was a running quarterback and he was already well out of bounds, I mean, did they not have to throw the flag in that spot? And what did you think about what most people are saying was just horrific officiating all the way around in both games?
Well, it's fitting that that's how this season should end, because that's pretty much how the season's gone right along. The NFL has a major, major problem on their hands with the officiating. And, if you read any comments online or in social media, it's clearly affecting the public's trust in our sport. And it's something that this league better be very concerned about, instead of finding my clients for bullshit penalties like landing on a quarterback or this and that. And so basically, it's a situation that really seems to be coming to a head. And yesterday, you just saw it in full effect as it relates to that call at the end on the Bengals guy shoving Mahomes out of bounds there.
Yeah.
It was the correct call. And, you got to feel terrible for that player. When I watch these things, I just imagine like, geez, what if that was one of my clients? What do you say to that guy after the game? How do you talk him off the ledge? Because, as much as it's cliche and it's admirable for Zach Taylor or, this guy's teammates to say that wasn't the play that decided the game.
Yeah.
Actually, it's incorrect. That is the play that decided the game.
Without question.
Obviously, it's obviously not the only play that affected the outcome of the game. Every single play up to that point has an effect. But when you want to talk about at that juncture, at that, location on the field, it was just a horrible lapse of judgment on that guy's part. And your heart has to break for him. I don't think he was trying to purposely hurt his team or purposely kill his team's chances of seemingly going to overtime where anything could happen. And frankly, in the second half, I mean, I felt like the Bengals looked as good as the Chiefs, if not better.
Yeah.
And so who knows what could have happened. But yes, I mean, those are the plays right there that unfortunately, Ernest Biner, growing up as a Browns fan,
Oh gosh.
is just one of the for years one of the best players on that team.
Oh yeah,
one of the highest characters, in that locker room. The guy was good for 1,000 yards. He ran hard. He played with heart. He gave this organization everything he had. He put the Browns in a position for 2-3 years to legitimately contend for Super Bowls, and yet he's remembered for the fumble against the Broncos.
Yeah.
And fair or unfair, there's a lot of players who had nothing careers that for whatever reason stepped up at the right time in the right place. And that's what they're remembered for. And then on the other hand, there's guys who, were Hall of Famers who for whatever reason, take Alan Page, you think about just some of the
Jackie Smith,
memorable. Yeah.
Was a borderline
correct.
Buckner.
Absolutely. I mean, Buckner, it's literally tragic what happened to that poor guy's life.
Yes.
Here's a guy that was not a Hall of Famer, but a Hall of damn good. I mean, for many, many years, yet he's remembered for, the play, and so that's just the way sports is. And it's obviously not fair, but that's the way it's always been. It's the way it'll always be. And, the good thing for this guy, unlike a guy like Buckner, who was at the end of his career at that point, this guy's still very much at the beginning, and he's still a very, very good player on a very, very good team, a team that I believe will have the opportunity to compete for Super Bowls, for the years to come, as long as Joe Burrow is there and he's healthy. And so, you just hope that this guy gets the opportunity to redeem himself in the future. And there's certainly a good chance that could happen.
Yeah, and it wasn't quite as obvious, to stick out in people's memories for like 50 years where, I can still see Smith dropping that pass from Roger Staubach and Staubach's reaction. And this was a guy who was great, had a tremendous career. And, that's what he's remembered for, man. That may be the only thing that a lot of people know him for. And the same thing with Buckner. I happened to be around Buckner when I was covering the Dodgers in Los Angeles. He was a member of the Dodgers and as steady a ball player as you could find. And he, almost Mickey Mantle-esque, not quite in the same category, but had a bum ankle that had impaired his career. But he was always a gutty player, and yet he's only known for that blown grounder against the Mookster. A couple of other things real quickly here. I found this surprising. I don't know what you thought about this. It seemed like every job opening, there are like 5 openings, coaching openings, or at least there were, and there might be 4 now after Reich got a job. But every coaching position that was open had like Kellen Moore being interviewed, and yet even after having the 4th highest point production in the NFL last year, Dallas let him go yesterday. What do you make of that?
Part ways.
They parted ways. Oh, okay. Is that because he's going to get a head coaching job, or what did you make of that?
I think an OC job, to be brutally honest.
I don't know. I mean, your guess is as good as mine. Usually, a guy doesn't leave his team prior to getting the head coaching job elsewhere. Usually, you get the new job and then you say your goodbyes to your prior organization. But that's a difficult one. There's no way to tell. Obviously, there's been a whole lot of talk as it relates to just the overall coaching situation on that team. A lot of people are curious to see what would happen with Dan Quinn. Now, he's a guy who, in my opinion, would be a great hire for somebody. That's a guy that took the Falcons to the Super Bowl. I certainly don't think he was the reason for them losing that game.
Yeah.
And so, he's a guy who's done a great job with Dallas's defense. It just seems like in today's NFL, you're seeing more and more and more teams just wanting to go with offensive people. And so sometimes when you see certain coaches like a Brian Flores, who is certainly a good defensive coach in this league who's had some head coaching experience, some good, some bad. Some people say, well, is he not going to get another job because he sued the league? I don't think that helps. But I'd say the main reason is, again, most of the guys you hear, the names you hear being discussed, Sean Payton, Kellen Moore, as you mentioned up until recently, a lot of these other guys, they're all offensive minds. Those are the types of coaches that have been having success most recently. And so teams tend to follow those trends. But on the other hand, it seems like D'Amico Ryans is going to be getting a head coaching job here in the next week. And I think that'll be a great hire for somebody. I think he's, a great young up and coming coach. I think he's done an amazing job with San Francisco's defense. So, there you're seeing a defensive coach get hired. You're seeing a black coach get hired, because I know a lot of people have concerns about, what's going on with Steve Wilkes or Flores and some of these other guys. So again, I think it still can be done that a defensive coach can be hired, but it has to be the right guy, the right situation. And I feel like a guy like Ryan really brings a lot of energy, a lot of leadership. He's a younger guy that I feel like players will really be able to, relate to and respect. And so, this could be like the next generation's Mike Tomlin. So, whatever team ends up hiring him, let's hope that's the case for them.
All right, one final thing. The Dolphins make a move. They get Fangio to be their defensive coordinator. One of those salty dog coaches. Didn't work out. I thought it was an odd hire when he got a head coaching job. But nonetheless, and he didn't have great success in that role. But, it was always a well-respected defensive coordinator. What do you make of the Dolphins making that move and letting Boyer go?
Well, I think it's probably one of the most important Dolphins coaching hires ever.
Wow.
And I don't think I'm exaggerating or embellishing when I say that. The guy arguably is, one of the top few defensive minds in the league. Always had success as a defensive coordinator. Obviously, he tried the head coaching thing. Maybe he was a little old. Maybe he was in the wrong situation. I don't know. It didn't work out for whatever reason. But someone else's loss will definitely be the Dolphins' gain if, in fact, they do get that contract buttoned up with him. And he's exactly what this team needs, because in the head coach, you've obviously got the young, new generation of guy that, again, the whole team really can get behind. He can really, bring an energy and an enthusiasm there. And so it doesn't hurt to have a guy like Fangio there who, like you said, sort of the old salty dog, last generation kind of guy. But they're very, very fortunate to have him. And, you've seen the difference that a guy like Wade Phillips, another guy from a prior generation, you see the impact that he still had on teams even recently. And so I think this is just absolutely a grand slam hire for the Dolphins. And it's what they need. And so they get that defense straightened out. They bolster that offensive line in this offseason. Two things that can be done. Look out, because with the weapons they have, if they can keep Tua healthy and give him protection and give the running backs a little bit of added beef up front, give them some better lanes to run through, this team could be scary.
Excellent stuff as always, Brett Tessler, the agent to the stars. As that's like digging up Bill Arnsparger, bringing this guy in. That's fantastic. All right, we love you, Brett, man. We'll get your Super Bowl prediction next week, and and enjoy the week, and we'll talk to you again next time around. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks, Tess, man.
Sounds great, guys. Take care.
Brett Tessler, the agent to the stars. All right, this is great, because we're going to do a little Pigskin Playbook here, and it's very appropriate today. And there is a lot of other sort of stuff, peripheral stuff. This will be a good 2 weeks leading up to the Super Bowl, no? What will be the central story? Obviously, it's going to be Mahomes' ankle.
The injuries, I would say, the Jalen Hurts.
And Hurts. With the shoulder.
And Landon Dickerson, two of their stalwart offensive linemen, both by the end of that game were banged up. Jalen Hurts did not look good. Now maybe
Chiefs had some key guys carted off, not carted off the field,
Chiefs,
but limping
so one
off
thing that
too.
no one talked about, which to me, and that's how good they are. They were missing 3 of their top 4 receivers by halftime.
Kelsey wasn't himself,
and Kelsey was hurt and almost didn't play. Like they had 3 guys at the end of that game that don't get any run. That were their 2, 3, 4 receivers. That's actually impressive that they were able to hang around in that game. Is 2 weeks enough to get them healthy? And because by the end of it, Mahomes did that one pass, and you could tell from that point on, he was not the same. So
no, he got gimpier. I mean, that'll tend to happen, right? You've got all your therapy going, and you're feeling pretty good, and then you take that one step that re-aggravates whatever it was that was bothering you, and you've seen it. You've experienced it yourself, even just playing recreationally, right? You try to come back from a bum ankle or something, or you had a knee bothering you, and it's all going fine in the beginning, and then something happens, and slowly it deteriorates back to what it was before, and you're like, But that was a gunny run, man. Is the Shun Fujimoto comparison fair there with Mahomes taking off, knowing that he was dead lame? Come on, Lubie, let's use your imagination. All right, John Congemi, can we pop John up here for a second before we?
He's there.
Get into it. There he is.
Hey guys,
a handsome one himself. We needed a dose of good looks here on the program here because we're wearing a little bit thin. John, how are you? First of all,
I'm great. How are you guys?
We're doing well. So we want to get into a lot of stuff with you. So be ready. I know, I'm sure you had a chance to watch both of those games. And, if you tuned down on the first one, you weren't alone. Even my dog fell asleep like in the first quarter, and he loves football.
I fell asleep in the first quarter. I did.
My God. I guess it was a game into the second quarter, and there was still a possibility that somehow magically San Francisco would find some solution to their problems. But, wow, I mean, it just, after they gave up that second score in the final 2 minutes of the first half, it was, that was it. All right, we're coming back with John Congemi and his Pigskin Playbook in just a moment, brought to you by Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill, mile marker 104, the Overseas Highway. I'll bet that place was absolutely rocking yesterday with the 2 games on. And then, wow, I don't even know if you can. It's going to be tough. You better make plans early if you're going to be there for the Super Bowl, because that would be a wild place to have a party. So we'll be back with more with John Congemi in a moment. Now that
the time,
it's 8:05. Ponies in Style at Champions, the outstanding simulcasting room at beautiful Hialeah Park. Yes, the grand old lady of thoroughbred racing has never been more vibrant, and you can wager on the races from the top tracks around the country while enjoying a cocktail at the Brass Rail Bar or any of the fine food served throughout the facility. If poker is your game, you're covered in Style, and you can play all your favorite Vegas-style games, including blackjack, craps, and roulette, in Hialeah Park's sizzling hot casino. Get a player's card when you walk through the door for all kinds of generous amenities, including our favorite, free play, when you come out to the ultimate casino and entertainment destination, Hialeah Park.
Hey folks, Tony Segreto here. Since day one, Catholic Health Services has been part of Old School. And since we've started letting people know about them, it's changed their lives. You see, Catholic Health Services, while being recognized as one of the top places for stroke rehab in the country, it's also about a group of people who not just excel in what they do, from the doctors to the nurses to the therapist, on and on and on. It's how they do what they do every single day that separates them from the pack. They do it with a passion, unmatched, and the inclusion of family in every step of the process. Trust me when I tell you this. If you want the best, unmatched rehab with a special group of skilled, caring people, there is truly only one place, and that one place is Catholic Health Services.
These days, we're all looking for comfort anywhere we can find it. Thank goodness for Landlubbers Raw Bar and Grill in the Plantation location, because they are making sure you are as comfortable as possible. First of all, they're not only open for delivery and pickup. All you have to do is go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both pickup and free delivery. Their hours have changed a little bit. Monday through Thursday from 3:30 to 10, and Friday, Saturday, and Sunday from 11:30 to 10. You're going to have the best wings in the world. You're going to have a great burger. You're going to have their amazing soups. Again, Landlubbers, Raw Bar, and Grill. It's nice and easy. Just go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both your pickup and free delivery. Thank goodness for Landlubbers for making you always feel right at home.
He followed in the footsteps of the great Dan Marino and brought Pittsburgh to heights not seen since the great Tony Dorsett ran the ball to Panthers' glory. He made the CFL fans forget about Flutie and Theismann and Warren Moon. As a football analyst, he's been compared with D-Row and Madden. And even more importantly, he survived the Joe Philbin era as a member of the broadcast team, the Finsiders. We welcome to the program the great John Congemi. Made a dynamite debut, as alluded to in the opening there, and came right back with a strong follow-up. And every Monday, 9 o'clock, we go Dateline Dolphins with John Congemi. Jonathan, how are you, my friend?
I am doing terrific, Defo. I think the most impressive thing about that open was me surviving the Philbin era. I thought that was
The only way to get your morning started is with Defo, joined by Lubie, right here on the Defo Show.
That response still cracks me up. Surviving the Philbin era. Think about that.
That's impressive.
Wow, that was not easy. Joe liked us too, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah,
We did not
I
know
had
that.
a good relationship with him. He was a really good guy.
Nice guy, yeah.
Yeah.
You know what's funny? I mean, he could have been a real hard on about the amount of liberty that we took with his good name over the years, because he just was boring. I mean, that was it. It was as simple as that. But he got a kick out of it, actually, because he challenged us about coming up with the nickname Smoking Joe Philbin. Which it turned out, I think we've told you the story before, the entire defensive coaching staff were huge fans of Lubie and me. And they did their own impressions every day after meetings of our show. And they loved the nickname Smoking Joe Philbin and passed it along to him. And so we're interviewing Philbin, and we had the flagship, rights to the team. So we had, good access to all of these guys all the time. And they would throw us Philbin every, now and then to promote things or whatever. And he right away starts out. Now, you don't want this coming from a coach, especially you're a player, so they respect you even more. There's another level or dose of respect. We're just schmucks that talk about this stuff. And, here we're challenging this guy's, ability to coach a team. And he says, I hear you got a nickname for me. And we're like, oh, fuck. I mean, this is not a good start.
Yeah.
And he says, yeah, Smoking Joe Philbin. I kind of like that. And I was like, wow. I mean,
where do you go from there? Yeah.
What a surprise. Yeah, no, that was great. But no, he was a lot of fun. All right. You want to start with the good game or the bad game? I mean,
up to you guys. Up to you.
Let's go with the good one, because
right.
it sparks a lot of different things. And, it was classic because, Cincinnati, was getting badly outhandled in the early portion of that game. First quarter was a disaster. Burrow's getting sacked like there's no tomorrow. I mean, you're thinking, wow, if they're going to put this kind of relentless pressure on Burrow and not be able to run the ball at the same time, going to be a long day. But you come out of the first quarter, and I don't know how many times Kansas City, this is why they were so terrible against the spread. I mean, they had dominated completely, 110 yards to 0 in the first quarter, and they're only up 6-0. And you're thinking, it's still a game. A lot of people, especially after it became 13-3, what we're thinking, that this thing is over. But no, hardly the case, because, Cincinnati managed to peck away. And even though Kansas City's defense was real good in the ballgame, that's just, a real tight matchup all the way around. And I thought Cincinnati was going to pull it out in the end. I really did. I don't know what you thought.
Yeah, I was kind of leaning towards Cincinnati finding a way to win. I thought some of the keys to the game early, Cincinnati, as you said, did nothing in the first quarter. But you looked at the scoreboard and you're going, gosh, well, we're one big play away from being up 7-6, or at least going down there and getting points. And they did that, and they closed the gap. I just thought one of the keys, Kansas City on defense in the red zone denied Joe Burrow and the Bengals that touchdown they needed, that momentum, not only to get closer, but actually either tie it or take the lead, right? And I thought they did that at crucial times. And then every call that could have possibly went against the Bengals went against the Bengals.
No doubt.
On the road, tough game, two really good teams. Your offensive line not having a great day. Joe Burrow getting hit and sacked and pressured and hurried. It was one of those games where if you got a break in the officials' play calling or penalty calling, I guess, you feel like, okay, we dodged a bullet. We're ready to go. We're going to make a play. We'll be able to win the game. That play either created or generated by offense, defense, or special teams, and then to have the officials, you go 0 for against them, it's tough to win on the road, especially against a quality team. And Patrick Mahomes did what he needed to do. I mean, he looked what I thought he would look like, kind of hobbled around there for a while.
Looked like the shot wore off in the second quarter.
Well,
even though they denied that he had taken any kind of medication for this thing.
Yeah, you don't know.
When it feels like 5 degrees, there's a lot of things that are going to wear off in the stands and on the field,
Right.
So it was a tough day or night to play there, and he gutted it out. He did what he needed to do to win.
No, it was great. I know, and I love these kind of stories too, where a guy Marquez Valdez-Scantling, I mean, sounds like what you can't imagine that this guy was going to be an MVP candidate. I'm sure they gave it to Mahomes, I guess, but
I mean, I got a pair of those.
For the game, he was great. This kid.
I got a pair of those jeans in my closet. Those Valdez Scantlings. I mean, they're great.
Yeah, it sounds like something you drink when you're sitting down having one with Julio Cesar Chavez in Mexico City. I mean.
Exactly.
Yeah, let's have Valdez Scantling here. It's a great brand of tequila, but he makes a sensational catch. I mean, and I love that when some guy comes out of nowhere and on a championship platform like that and ends up making a day. I mean, the Chiefs though were afflicted with a lot of injuries in that game. You do have 2 weeks before the Super Bowl, but you would have to think that all the attention in the world is going to be on this Mahomes ankle over the next couple of weeks. And yet, as you said, and we compared this to this Japanese gymnast, Shun Fujimoto, who was on the still rings. I don't know if you remember this guy from the 70-something Olympics. And he had a broken leg, and he had to do the dismount. And Mahomes, I mean, he read every option on that last play when the time was, clicking off there, and ended up having 10 seconds or 8 seconds to go in the game. But he has the final option is to take off. And he actually dug in, I mean, in spite of the fact that he looked like he was being, more and more compromised throughout the game. And that was it. And then this Osai, who, he was having a real good ball game. He was a major factor in Cincinnati being in the game on the defensive side, and makes one of those bonehead plays that, wow, I mean, is that up there? I don't know that it's going to be up there with like Jackie Smith and Bill Buckner and, some of that stuff. But, certainly cost them any chance they had to win the ball game, and ultimately led to the loss.
That game extends into overtime, and now you're at the mercy of what happens, right?
Right, you got a hobbling Mahomes and Burrow, who was finding Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Wow, what a pair of receivers!
Right, and down the stretch of that game, Mahomes on a couple third and mediums to short went down the field and was successful. Once finding Chase, and the other time, they get an interception on a tip pass. So it wasn't like Cincinnati sat back and was playing for a tie or playing for overtime. They were going for it. And, a couple plays turned their way at the end, and they may be, riding high. But you're right, that play there, nothing irritates, coaches more or players more that you're fighting all the way through, and a mental bust, and that leads to a physical play that doesn't need to happen. They're going to punt the football. As a defense, you have to know you're always talking about, well, the quarterback needs to orchestrate, if you line up properly and get guys on the line, off the ball, put guys, right the offensive line for protection, identify guys. On defense, you're doing the same thing. Linebackers have to know, listen, it's third and whatever. He's running for 3 or 4 yards at the most, and they're going to punt the football back to us.
Yeah.
The last thing you want to do is put it, a hand by a helmet, by a quarterback, force him out of bounds when he's already going out of bounds. He's not going to run away from you.
Yeah, what's he going to spin, do a 360 like he does sometimes? No way.
Yeah, he doesn't have that ability. So know your situation, and that's one of the things that eats away as a football team, just going like, we should be smarter than that. We're in the AFC championship game for a reason. Not only our ability physically, but mentally, we've made plays that we've either stayed away from or, just turned down. And that's when you turn down as a defender.
How hard in the moment is it to do that? Because that's the thing. Like you saw him, a lot of people said, well, he was just frustrated he didn't get there. I don't know about that. I think he figured he had the angle. And then once Mahomes got the angle, he was like, shoot. And he just got lost in the moment because he's been running after this guy all day. Like, how hard is it in the moment to have your brain go, no, don't do the thing you've been taught to do for the last 20 years? Like,
well, that's part of your training, though. That's part of your discipline, right? You have to know when it's attack, and you have to know when it's, I'm going to slow play this guy out of bounds because he can't run away from me. This guy's wounded, right? I mean, even though he's got a hip on me and he's got a couple yards, he's not going to go much farther. And you have the cavalry coming from the secondary as well. So all you're doing is riding him out of bounds. You're escorting him to the easiest way possible to get the ball back and then go to overtime. So that I would chalk up to, a mental bust, because you have to be better than that. You have to be better than that. Your expectation as a player and a coach are to not make that play, right?
Yeah.
So in the first quarter, that play might not be as significant. Okay, your adrenaline's running and you're up to making a play. In the heat of the moment, you're thinking before the snap, what happens if? Almost like a baseball player at shortstop or third base, ball gets hit to me, runners at first and second, one out. What am I doing? Yeah. So when he escapes, you're going, okay, I'm going to get him out of bounds or I'm going to get him on the ground. But the last thing I'm going to do when he's in the white of the out of bounds is I'm going to put my hands on him.
Oh, yeah. Mahomes is in the stands by the time this guy hits him. We have some people, including our good friend Jim Sarney, screaming, that they should have swallowed the whistle there. But I don't know. I mean, you could never call, unsportsmanlike conduct or, unnecessary roughness if you didn't call it there, because, I mean, he's clearly out. And like you said, John, you have to, sort of, pre-analyze the situation. What am I going to do if, Mahomes is only going to do one thing, and it's run out of bounds.
Right.
So, get whatever yardage you can. And I think Butker would have had to try like a 60-yard field goal, right? I mean,
I think
that's a
they pumped the
15-yard
football
penalty
there because he barely made it with the penalty yards.
Yeah.
He made it by 4 or 5 yards.
Right.
With the 15 yards that
they wouldn't have tried it from that distance. You're right.
Right. It would have been like 57, 50.
Now you're in overtime, guaranteed.
Game.
And Cincinnati, I think, had gathered most of the momentum there. It was a decent job by the KC defense to kind of, stave off a complete, overwhelming, comeback by the Cincinnati Bengals in that game. Because, as you said, that they held them a couple of times, after long drives, when it got down to like the 5-yard line.
Not only did Cincinnati, start to build some confidence and momentum in that second half on offense, but Kansas City, their receiving core was kind of beat up. Mahomes is beat up.
Yeah.
You're getting later in the game where I think Chase might be able to take over in terms of, with him and T. Higgins running.
Man, he's great.
Around.
Those two guys are great.
Yeah, those two guys are terrific, right?
Yes.
So I think Cincinnati might have had the momentum. Okay, we came all the way back. We got a chance in overtime. There's new overtime rules. We're going to get the football. We got a fighter's chance, right?
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of how both teams roll, throughout the season, where you saw Cincinnati always overcoming obstacles and Kansas City kind of like drawing itself back to the pack all the time, which they did to some degree in this ball game as well. How did Zach Taylor avoid punching one of the officials in that game? I mean, if you're ever going to take a penalty, you may as well have just slugged like the head, the referee in that ball game, because especially that blunder with the clock. I mean, that was atrocious the way they enforced that, and confused the living daylights out of virtually everybody, right?
I've never seen a do-over.
No, nobody knew what was going on.
In the National Football League.
A do-over.
You know what? Let's just run the play over again. Now, you get 3 more plays. They get the stop. They get the ball back. And I think that was the drive that leads to the interception where Kansas City gets it on their own, like 10-yard line or something like that. But still, I've never seen that happen before. When they showed the replay, you could clearly see the official trying to stop the play from deep in the secondary.
Yeah, but he's way back there. He's in left field.
How does no one stop the play? Like, that was weird.
Yeah, that was a scenario I've never seen unfold before.
Well, especially since they run the play. Yeah, I mean, they run the play and then they're short. And Zach Taylor, I don't know how he, restrained himself from just going ahead and slugging a guy, because he was already, being, seemingly victimized by a series of sort of, I don't know that they were all questionable, because sometimes they roll it back. Okay, did he hold him?
Right.
Yeah, he did. But, he was, it seemed like getting the worst of it. from the officials the entire ball game, and that was just an absolute capper, right? You're forcing them into a punt, and now they get to do a do-over. It was Colorado, Missouri all over again. Now, why don't we just give the Chiefs 5 downs?
Here we go.
Yeah, incredible. And that was a big issue in the other game too. San Francisco, I mean, penalized to an extraordinary level. In that game. Now, I don't know that it would have mattered because they just didn't have any firepower and couldn't score after the injury to the second string quarterback, which was the fourth string guy. But and are you with us? I mean, is this the whole thing about Colin Kaepernick raising its ugly head, where the Niners should have had him on the roster because he's still capable of playing? A lot of people think so. Adam Schefter is reporting he was throwing passes at the beach just the other day and to his girlfriend, and she was making a lot of nice catches in the water.
Here's the thing I don't get in the National Football League.
Yeah,
they have you dress 50. You have a 53-man roster for a game that gets cut down to 47 that are.
Why do they do that though? Why is that still in play?
It doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
No, it's embarrassing too.
They pay those guys anyway.
Yeah,
they're getting their full salary. Why not have them available to dress so you have more depth and make it mandatory that every team has to dress 3 quarterbacks every game and it doesn't count against your 53.
Well, would Jimmy G have been the third guy? I mean, who would have been the third guy? They would have to sign like Bubby Brister.
You would have to sign somebody that could actually play the position. So you don't get embarrassed when you have triple reverse to McCaffrey that throws the football down to nowhere.
Mike Glennon, right? I mean,
So I don't understand. There's enough. Dollars and cents aren't the issue.
Yeah.
Dress all of the guys that are capable of dressing that day, so you have more depth for special teams. So you don't have to, if you get nicked at wide receiver or linebacker or DB, you don't have to go bare bones and have one of your starters, that's a defensive, a premier corner that doesn't play on any special teams, or a tight end like Kelsey have to now play special teams because you've got 2 guys down that are your premier special teams guys. You have extra bodies. And like the situation that exposed itself yesterday in Philadelphia, you don't have to worry about running Wildcat the entire second half because you have both quarterbacks. One is concussed. The other guy, hurt his elbow and arm and nerve damage to his right hand. He can't grip the football to throw it. So it shouldn't happen. There's enough resources and enough forward thinking just to dress 3 quarterbacks. They don't count against your number. And you dress 52 or 3 or whatever the number is, if you include that, and you roll out like that, you have more bodies to play in a game.
It's kind of in the NHL. Don't they have a situation where if both your goalies go down, they actually pull a guy out of the crowd?
Popcorn comes down. He's the designated.
All of a sudden, he's Jacques Plante.
It's the same thing. I mean,
it's crazy. Jimmy, actually, speaking of the Big Chill, I remember him advocating that. I mean, a long time ago when he was coaching the Dolphins, I remember him coming over one day and doing a big, long rant about how, ridiculous it is to have a 53-man roster and only dress 47. And it's a twofold thing because, obviously there's a lot of ego involved in being a professional athlete. You have to think that you're great or whatever. And, you don't want to feel like the guy that just got cut from his junior high school team and you're showing up, to the game, in a shirt and tie. while I'm sitting in the stands, I mean, how do you tell those 6 guys they're not playing after they, have been with you all the way through all of the schwitzing and everything, in the preseason, and now they're on the team, and you're telling them that they're not dressing for the game. I mean, it's an embarrassment from that standpoint, I believe.
Well, it just allows the NFL to have more quality players that the game doesn't just take a nosedive.
Yeah.
Like it did in Philadelphia and San Francisco.
That game became somewhat unwatchable. Yeah.
It was. I fell asleep. I wasn't kidding. I fell asleep during portions of the game because it just we're going through the motions. It almost should have been like, you have the white flag and you just go, you know what? We've had enough.
Throw in the towel. Yeah.
We have no chance no matter what we do because now we have no ability to move the football. And, and they were to San Francisco's credit. They were still able to grind out first downs and run the football, but you knew they had no threat of doing anything else. So it was a matter of the clock just churning and churning because the clock was not going to stop. They were going to run the football every play.
Yep.
Oh no, that got really embarrassing. You'd figure at some point he just like flips one of those little funky tosses, or throws a screen pass or something. But they had nothing to combat what already is a formidable Philadelphia defense. All right, so we didn't see the Eagles tested at all. I mean, they breezed by the Giants, who we heard from Brett Tessler earlier, and he was saying, let's face it, the Giants were a borderline playoff team. They clinched the next to last week, or I don't know if they had to beat the Colts in that last game. I don't think so, but they may have. All right, so they're in there at like 10-7 on the season, or 9-7-1, something like that. They win a playoff game in Minnesota impressively. Minnesota, known as a choking dog team, and sure enough, they live up to their reputation in that category, losing to the Giants at home and getting outplayed. But Philadelphia, very impressive. I thought they were impressive against the Giants, but I don't know what to make of Philadelphia at this point. And they've been installed as a 2-point favorite over Kansas City. I thought it might be more, but I guess, the odds makers were also looking at was kind of a performance under the circumstances. That you would have thought they would have been more dominant in that ball game. What do you make of the matchup? Philadelphia, and were you impressed with them? And the Kansas City Chiefs, who we don't know what they're going to look like in a couple of weeks.
Well, I was impressed with Philadelphia the whole year. I mean, you take a look at the National Football League and you look at all the teams, there's a reason why they were sitting at top, and had the most wins and did a lot of really good things with Jalen Hurts and the offense that they were able to create. They have 2 or 3 running backs that can kind of roll you out in different ways. And they have a couple of dominant receivers that can take over a game with double tight ends and a good offensive line. And then that doesn't even speak on the other side of the football, where they were probably more dominant on defense. I think it was just an easy matchup against the Giants. Sometimes matchups make games and sometimes they don't. And I think that was the latter for the Giants. They just didn't match up well against Philadelphia and what they brought to the table. Now, yesterday, could they have done more? I think Philadelphia is kind of saying, well, we didn't have to do much to beat that team.
They were under wraps.
That was supposed to be really good. Now they, have both of their quarterbacks go down. It's a lot easier for Philadelphia to take control of the football game. And Hurts didn't have to rely on his legs in terms of, he ran the football a couple times, took a couple shots later in the game, which were maybe unnecessary because it was kind of out of hand. But you have 2 weeks now before you play the Super Bowl. So I think both of these teams will be closer. I don't know if they'll be 100% because both Mahomes and Hurts came into that game, clearly not 100%. But I think Hurts was closer, obviously, than Mahomes. Yeah. It should be a really good game. If both teams show up and play their best, it'll come down to whoever has the football last. I think it's both of these defenses have players that you have to account for. They're really good in the front 7. They can get after opposing quarterbacks. So I think it's going to be one of those games where later in the second half, somebody's going to turn the football over. Somebody's going to make a play on defense that tees up their offense to go down and score either a field goal or a touchdown to win it late.
You remember that Super Bowl with Dwight Freeney? That was like the only story anybody talked about for 2 weeks. It was here in Miami between Indy and Chicago.
Yes.
I want to say like circa,
13, 07, 08, something like that.
Yeah. It was a while back. And I remember that's all anybody talked about. I was on Radio Row here. And, you went through 40 interviews and everybody's like, how's Dwight Freeney's ankle? And the game turned out to be just a butcher job. I guess it was played under horrendous weather conditions. And, Peyton Manning did nothing in the ball game. And the Bears could muster up like 0 offense, as I recall. And the Colts ended up winning. But that was it. That was the whole storyline. I don't know. I mean, it may pale in comparison to the amount of attention that Patrick Mahomes' ankle is going to get for this game, because it was clear whatever he did to rehab this thing, the pain had been, or the restrictiveness of it had been reignited during the course of that game. Because towards the end, I mean, I couldn't believe that he took off on that run and actually outran a couple of people to the edge.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, he had to know at that point, it was like a John Congemi last dash, drive at the University of Pittsburgh, knowing that he was going to need surgery tomorrow, but throwing one, that took a lot of guts and a lot of effort.
It did. And just think about it. He's probably not going to do much, I would think, over the next 3 or 4 days, right?
Yeah.
Just give them complete rest, give them almost the whole week off, mentally prepare for the Eagles, get in the meetings, but don't really do much on the field.
Yeah.
And I think Jalen Hurts probably a little bit, he'll have a little bit more on his plate.
Sure.
But they're still going to give these guys this whole week to try to get right, because this is a long, long season. And guys that get injuries like that, you need some time. And if you can steal some time with this extra week before they play the Super Bowl, hey, just think if it was the old times where you played this week, right?
A week later, forget about it.
That bye week. This game might not be as good because of your key players not feeling 100%. Now, somehow, some way, you're going to get there. But like you said, Defo, and as you witnessed, as the game goes on, certain things kind of, wear off, and you're back to reality where, you're hurting and you're going on adrenaline just to get you through.
It's amazing they haven't come up with something, that you can inject into a guy. I know cortisone, would be something, or there are any number of painkillers that could mask it, but, may ultimately be, extremely dangerous to use,
Right.
especially with a $500 million commodity, because if the guy's not feeling any pain and, he doesn't know if, he needs to come out of the ball game or not. But I'm amazed they haven't come up with something that can kind of resolve that. I don't know, I had this stuff juiced in my knee, and whatever pain I was experiencing went away. and they say it's like, lasts like a year. Now I limped out of the office there, but I was better like 2 weeks later.
Right.
It was like fine again, which I thought, what a miracle, whatever that stuff was. I mean, I was like limping around. I'm amazed they haven't come up with something for the ankle yet that, I think this stuff was called Synvac, and they I don't know if you ever heard of it. Danny Boy might just inject this regularly at this point to walk around, but it like rejuvenates and relubricates your knee, even if you're in like a bone-on-bone situation. But they haven't come up with anything yet.
How long did it take for you to feel well? A couple weeks.
A few days later, you could see some some progress, and then. Like, the guy said it lasts about a year, so I don't look forward to getting the next shot. But, I mean, no matter what, it's just there's this, like, giant needles in your knee for, like, a while, even though you don't feel it. It's not like it's so painful. It's just like you feel this stuff going in there.
It looks horrible. Yeah, you're going, really? Is that what's happening right
It's
now?
just when you're feeling the stuff going in, it's like, you feel like you just got clocked by Joe Frazier. Like, whoa, I'm a little woozy here. But nothing for the ankle. So we'll see. That's an interesting story, because it looked like they repaired it to the point where in the early portion of the game, Mahomes was okay.
Yeah.
And then it deteriorated throughout the ball game to the point where he literally was verbal Kent, coming off the field there in the usual suspects. All right, Jimmy Johnson's big chill. I would imagine, I don't know if you got any reports, John Congemi, from Dominic Congemi or the lovely Amanda, or even the man himself, Jimmy, or Larry Calvano, but it had to be just rocking there over the weekend, no?
It had to be. You had some nice weather outside. You were able to go out and enjoy it. So I'm sure down in Key Largo, it was beautiful at Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill for the championship weekend. I know, last time we were down, it was awesome. And I was down about a month and a half ago and just kind of around to the sports bar and got a cocktail and then walked out to the tiki bar. It was just fabulous. So Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill was probably the spot to be in the Keys for championship weekend. And I would guess with the bye week in 2 weeks, the Super Bowl will be rocking down at Jimmy Johnson's.
I like the idea that people got married there, right? Didn't they just host a wedding?
They had a wedding a couple weeks ago. Yeah, they did. And they have that area down by the bay where
right there, on the sand.
Yeah, it's perfect. It's so scenic for all the pictures, and then you go up top to the rooftop and have your reception, and just a beautiful spot for any occasion, really.
No, it's always great. I mean, they ran the Miami Marathon yesterday, which I think these people are mashugana that they're going marathons. I ran into a friend of mine. He's like the groundskeeper at the tennis center where I play in Pompano Beach. Does a tremendous job. A guy named Kevin, man. I mean, he's really on top of it. And I run into him at Publix the other night, and he says he's thinking about running in a marathon, that he just did like 16 miles as a warm-up. I'm like, 16 miles? I can't even conceive of running 3 steps on like the pavement at this point, much like 16 miles as a warm-up. But they should have started the thing in Florida City, no? And just run in at about 26 miles down there and then taking a right into the Big Chill. And what a great way to end up at the bar there at the Tiki Bar right after running, 26 miles and 385 yards.
Yeah, right into the arms of the Tiki Bar would have been perfect.
Yeah, perfect, man. I mean, that would be my first move after running that many miles because I figure I schwitzed off enough to eat a whole Italian fisherman pizza.
That's right.
Just give me all 8 slices there,
Yeah,
Dominic.
cut them small. Cut them small.
Cut it in half. Yeah. All right, get down there. Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill. It's mile marker 104, the Overseas Highway. Great food and drink, unique menu, and all kinds of great stuff. The atmosphere couldn't be any more of a good vibe, good kind of time that you're going to have in the Keys. And the Keys a great place to relax, especially this time of the year where fishing is great and all these other things. And you can hang out there at Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill all day long, listen to the great music, and just have yourself a grand old time. All right, more to come. A lot of other stories, John, concerning the NFL.
Those
Whereabouts of people. Los Dolphins, made a move there with the fan show, which, Brett Tessler was making it sound like, they'd brought back Buddy Ryan from the grave with this guy.
Hey,
you might be as old as Buddy. Yeah.
He's a defensive consultant for the Eagles, and look what that defense is doing. So
Yeah,
I'm sure he's got his fingerprints a little bit on what they're doing as a defense, and who knows what the Dolphins and the playmakers they have on defense. An experienced guy might be exactly what they need.
I like this move too from this standpoint. I mean, you have a young guy in Mike McDaniel, and yet you have like an old stodgy, throwback type of coach on the staff there. Very Bill Arnsparger-esque.
Yes.
Yes. Like working with a young Dan Shula who was, doing all kinds of stuff. All right, we'll come back. We'll talk about a lot of different developments in the National Football League, and maybe touch on the upcoming matchup in the Super Bowl some more with John Congemi and the Pigskin Playbook here on the Defo Show. Back with more in a moment. Now that
It's time.
It's 8:40.
Folks, Tony Segreto here. Let me ask you a question. What do you look for when you go out to eat? Good food, obviously, friendly atmosphere, not too loud, but good energy, reasonable prices, and a place where you feel comfortable. All those ingredients, no pun meant there, are hard to find unless you're talking about the Texas Roadhouse. You see, they encompass all of those attributes. Really, really good food, amazing atmosphere, good for a family, good for a date, or just a night out for yourself, and prices that will make you extremely happy. Their ribs unmatched, steaks hand-cut every day. Everything, and I mean everything, is made on site, including their incredible bread. It's the one day, folks, that you can forget about low-carb diets. Trust me when I tell you, Texas Roadhouse, your restaurant, your destination when you say, where should we go and eat tonight?
From the newly renovated sports bar to the beautiful bayside views captured at the Tiki Bar, Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill has it all. Located at mile marker 104, the Big Chill also offers waterfront dining while experiencing breathtaking sunset views of the Florida Keys. It's simply the hottest spot in the Keys to cool off. That's Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill at mile marker 104 in Key Largo. For more information, call today at 305-453-9066.
Congemi. Now, did you scale it back when you were head-to-head with Danny there at Augusta National? Because, he doesn't like to lose.
Actually, guys, you're right. Dan doesn't like to lose at anything. And the only time I was ever able to go to Augusta, I think the Samsung guy backed out, and Danny asked me about 11:30 at night, and I put on my shoes and went to bed. And I woke up and went to Augusta, made a hole-in-one on the 16th hole, and Dan said he hit a better shot than me, so he took the tee on 17. So I let him do that. I didn't want to
in front of you after a hole-in-one.
When you add it up, I flew up on a private jet. I was going to eat for free. I played the golf course. I figured he deserves the tee on 17.
I mean, the audacity just to cut right in front of you after a hole-in-one.
Buenos dias. The cafecito is piping hot. Why not enjoy it with Defo and Lubie? It's now time for the Defo Show.
All right, welcome back to the show. The title games yesterday, one a boredom fest, an unfortunate mismatch created by injuries and all kinds of other bizarre circumstances. And the other, a thrill in Manila type of ball game, even though it may not have brought 100% of the greatness of these two teams to the table. They fought each other, as they have each time, right? 3-point margins, I think,
Right.
in virtually every ball game.
Yes, every game.
Yeah. So good rivalry developing there. Cincinnati finally loses. Is Travis Kelce? I mean, is he the new Gronk? I mean, this guy. I mean, he's wild. Not only as a player, but after the game, he's calling the Cincinnati mayor a jabroni on national television,
Yeah.
which is not particularly a flattering term. I mean, you being Italian would be well aware of that. Basically, it's like calling a guy a horse's ass on national
Yeah.
television. No,
Uh,
so he was great.
He's great. I think he's good for the game. He lets it loose and maybe tone it back when he's doing all types of things on national TV. But still, I mean, he's a passionate player. He's a productive player. He's one of the best in the league, if not the best.
Oh, he's great.
So
yeah,
it's awesome. It's awesome to see that those guys have they have each other's back. Mahomes was kind of getting it all week where he couldn't beat Burrow. And I think that kind of ate away at some of Kansas City's players that wanted to prove that, they could find a way to win at home and not be, Burrowhead Stadium. It was Arrowhead Stadium and Patrick's Place. And one of those things where it's tough to hear that all week and not have some built up frustration that you want to let out once the game's over and you've won the game.
There was a lot of bulletin board material being referenced
Yes.
there, which I mean, I usually dismiss it. I don't think anything of the whole bulletin board thing. I mean, if guys insulting you outright, that's one thing. But I guess they took that to heart because they couldn't help. Everybody was kind of making reference to it, especially
Right.
Kelce afterwards, saying, basically go bleep yourselves. All of you people in Cincinnati, go choke on your Skyline chili. And, all right, we touched on the Fangio thing. One of the other weird things, John, that's going on. What's happening with Kellen Moore in your estimation? Because he was a candidate for virtually every head coaching job. I would say Dallas had a decent season from an offensive standpoint. They were fourth in the league in scoring, which is the ultimate criteria for whether or not your offense is functioning. I don't know if that was fueled and thrown out of whack by defensive scores. I wouldn't think so. Kellen Moore, I mean, widely respected. So what do you think happened there? I mean, it's like firing the hitting coach, right? Isn't it? McCarthy would be the guy that you would thought would come under fire at the end of the season.
I don't know what happened there. I mean, when you ask a guy to step down, is that any different than saying, "Hey, you're fired"? I don't know.
I can assure you, it's happened to me.
Yeah. Me too.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I thought Dallas was getting better and better each and every year, and maybe they took a step back in terms of where they got to the previous 3 years with offensive success. But as you mentioned, you're in a top 5 situation in points scored on offense. You're in every ball game, no matter how bad your defense is, and their defense was pretty good. So I think everybody's looking to point fingers sometimes when you don't have the success that you're projected to have or maybe want to have as an owner. And Jerry's going to be one of those guys that you would think he would go from the top down and just get rid of everybody that way, because he was fond of young offensive coordinators, aka like Jason Garrett and Kellen Moore. So I don't know. I think that was the last guy on the chopping block, because it seemed like they got 4 or 5 other assistants already.
Yeah.
And so it's just about your.
Where's Dave Campo? I mean, is he hovering around
you're at this
Cowboys
point,
offices?
right?
Yeah.
You're hiring a completely new staff. So I think the Cowboys are going to be busy this week at the Senior Bowl, not only looking at talent, but trying to find an offensive and defensive staff that they can put together.
All right, so what do you think happens to Kellen Moore? I mean, usually he would have been named like a head coach somewhere before you had this business with the Cowboys coming up. And it sounded to me, I mean, at least from the reports, it looked to me like he had interviewed for at least 3.
Well, the Chargers were
5 openings.
Yeah, the Chargers are one of them. I think a couple other teams were mentioned, but as you said, there's still a lot of teams out there with head coaching availability.
Yeah.
So I'm sure he's going to get in line now, with the rest of the guys that are trying to, jockey their names to the top of the leaderboard, and maybe he's a candidate for one of those jobs. I don't know. It might be another turn at offensive coordinator before he gets a shot at as a head coach.
The rhetoric would lead you to believe that Aaron Rodgers and the Packers are el finito.
Yeah. I thought they were done last year, to be honest with you.
The body language looked that way until they started making that little surge at the end of the season, including an embarrassing road win over our own Miami Dolphins at a critical time of the year. But they fell short, losing to Dallas. To the Lions on that last game of the regular season, where the Lions knew they were out of the playoffs and still played a dynamite game against them. Do you see Rodgers coming back there? And it seems like, the conversation has kind of shifted in the direction of he's not. And where does he go? Or does he just, I know you're not a mind reader, but what do you see? I mean, do you see him actually quarterbacking another team next year?
Well, yeah, I think the first thing you have to do is, okay, do I want to play?
Yeah.
And if the answer is yes, I've got all that money on the table in Green Bay. If I want to play, do I want to go back there? And do they have to make certain, adjustments to the offensive talent for me to come back there? Or do they trade me somewhere? And if that's a possibility, who's going to be able to take on that contract and still be able to get enough people around him that team, wherever that destination is, they can be competitive with them?
Yeah. And it has to be a 1-year prop. I mean,
it's one or two, right?
Two
at the
tops.
most.
Yeah.
So I think his best bet is going back to where he is, and they don't do anything, and he gets his money and he goes and plays. But I think the first thing is, do I want to play football? And if I do, for all the right reasons, there's a lot of millions of dollars sitting on the table for him to make. So I think that's the first thing in the offseason that Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers have to cross that bridge together. And if they do, then they got to go out and find some players to beef up the offense around him.
Well, and this as well as anybody that a quarterback can get crushed at any time and have some kind of debilitating injury that maybe even impacts the rest of his life. But we've certainly seen. It seems like every play they're picking somebody off the field in NFL games these days. Whether the injuries are minor or not, but Rodgers doesn't seem to play with the kind of recklessness that even though he does run with the football. I don't know. It seemed like this year he was just kind of hanging out back there. And, it wasn't really under any immense pressure. I don't know. Maybe, I didn't see obviously every play of the Green Bay Packers season, but certainly looks like if he wanted to come back, it wasn't like, he was going to do himself any great damage because he's mastered the art of, knowing what to do with his body.
Yeah. You watch Tom Brady and you watch Aaron Rodgers play the position. They're not going to take as many shots as some other guys because they're going to either run out of trouble to just throw the football away, or they're going to get rid of it a lot sooner. And they're not exposing themselves to big hits unless somebody just comes free and they happen to get caught unaware, but that doesn't happen much.
Yeah.
So
Lubie.
I wanted to circle back to, and we touched on the Fangio thing a little, like Defo brought it up and you made a remark, but it's funny. People keep saying things like this, and I guess it's sort of true. Like for years, it felt like the Dolphins, every move they made felt questionable, felt Philbin, Cameron. But the last at least couple moves between McDaniel was heralded, and Fangio, people are using the term grand slam. Like they're not even saying home run or great hire. They're saying literally the Dolphins beat out 4 teams for this guy. Whatever he was as a head coach, as a defensive mind, he's as good as any ever. They're really talking about him like he's the piece the Dolphins were missing. And the fact that he's an older dude to McDaniel's younger guy, which is what Boyer wasn't, he can look. McDaniel a lot of the time made decisions that all of us were like there's no one there to be like, and it feels like he'd be that guy. He is an old enough guy to be like, look, we don't have to throw it here. It's okay if you run it here. It's okay and no one else on that staff I felt like was doing that. People feel like this hire covers every base. What are your thoughts? Because I've never heard of them talk about a Dolphins hire where they're talking about this Vic Fangio hire.
Well, Fangio had a ton of interest everywhere, not only as a potential head coach, which he once was in Denver for a season or two, but as a defensive coordinator. I think Indianapolis wanted him, Carolina wanted him. There was a lot of places where he could have landed. And for him as a coach, he's 64 years old. Okay, I'm not quite sure what Mike McDaniel's age is, but it's nowhere near 45. You know, he's either 30 something, late 30s or early 40s. And all the other coordinators that McDaniel and the Dolphins have interviewed were all 39, 42, 43. They were all in that strike zone. Now, you had to make a decision. Do I want a guy with experience that can come in, that has head coaching pedigree, that is handled, you know, from top to bottom, everything? And all I want him to do is either be a sounding board for me and be the head coach of the defense, where I don't have to mess with it. I can ask a question or two, but I know this guy's handling everything from A to Z. Or do I have to keep an eye on the defense and babysit a little bit with a younger guy that I don't quite agree with what he's going with, but I'm gonna learn a little bit more, but it's gonna take me away from the offensive side, or it's gonna take me away from special teams. I think they went with the first choice because this team is close. Remember, we're all saying all year they're all in, right? With all the moves they made, Bradley Chubb, Tyreek Hill, this team's in a 2-3 year window where they're all in. And if the quarterback stays healthy and plays close to what he did this year, they're going to have a chance to win in the AFC. They closed the gap on Buffalo. 3 games, 4 points separates those wins or losses against the Bills. If they can get a little bit better, a little bit more cohesive, get the ball turned over a little bit more frequently on defense, maybe that closes the gap. And now they've got a guy that is well respected with the experience coming in and handling that side of the football. So, yeah, I think it fits everything the way the Dolphins are going. If you get a younger guy, do you have to learn on the run? And that window starts to, that 2 or 3 year window starts to evaporate because now the contracts are all hitting. You got to pay Chubb millions of dollars. You got to pay X millions of dollars. You got to pay Tua at some point. You're going to pay Wilkins this year. There's a lot of Armstead still on the hook. And how many games is he going to play? The window is not there for long. So you have to be able to get guys that are going to come in and handle their business. And I think Fangio is going to do that on the defensive side for the Dolphins.
Is Tom Brady going to be somebody's one-year solution at quarterback next year? Or, obviously, there's a possibility that he doesn't play. I think just to further piss off Giselle while she's gallivanting around with that jiu-jitsu guy, riding naked horseback in the seas of Costa Rica. You're like, could she do any more publicly to embarrass Brady after the season that he had and the way it finished? Does he come back just out of spite? If not, can he be a functional piece of somebody's championship dreams next year, Tom Brady?
Well, he's got to answer the same question that Aaron Rodgers has to answer, only his is a little different because he's totally a free agent, right? Do I want to play one more year? And if I do play, is it San Francisco that needs a quarterback for a year? Is Jimmy G's going to not come back? And you're still, you had success with, a rookie 7th round draft choice, but is he going to be able to bridge it for a whole season, right?
He might need Tommy John too. I mean, that's
you don't know the extent of the injury. I mean, you have the whole off season, but still, you might have to have surgery, or maybe it's just one of those things where in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, he's going to be fine. But still, that doesn't answer the question long term. So yeah, I don't think Tom Brady's going to. I mean, people are saying that he has a chance to go back to Tampa Bay. I don't know. I just don't know if that's going to happen. But he has to answer the same question Aaron Rodgers does. Do I want to play another season? Do I want to, go through this again? And if I do, where do I want to do it? I'm building a house here. My kids are here. Just put them in school. Do I want to still be in Tampa for that reason to get back and forth as quickly as I need to be? Or do I want to go for it somewhere else?
All right. Let's talk a little bit about the commentary during the game. I like Greg Olson. We said this earlier. Too much slumbering. I don't know. What is your thought? It just seems like, the minute the play's over, he starts in, and even though what he's saying seems to be like technically correct and all of that, it just seems like too much. Like after a while, you tune it out because it's just so much. Well, one thing on top of another, a lot of technical analysis. What do you think? I mean, very likable guy, noble character, ex-UM guy. We got to know him here. Does everything right, had a nice career, I think maybe even better than people anticipated. But I don't know. Should he be like the number one analyst there on Fox? I thought he was just babbling away after a while.
Well, I think in both games, it could have been less is more.
Yeah,
because
that's
you-
Tony's
as a-
game too.
as-
He just
as a
babbles.
fan,
Yeah.
as a fan, you're kind of just want to let it breathe a little bit.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think that sometimes either producers, direct, you just go, and sometimes on second down, it's just not say anything. It just let the play-by-play guy
Yeah.
take you through and kind of set it up and not worry about predicting a play or telling us why that the formation that they're in while the ball's still not snapped. Just kind of let it breathe and let the natural sights and sounds kind of eke their way into the broadcast.
That's a lost art, John Congemi. It really is. I mean, the thing that's is concerning, I guess, of the trends in color analysis, especially in football games, is we're watching the pictures. So
Yeah.
and that seems to be lost. And then there's this new infatuation with all kinds of illustrative gadgets, which I don't know that you need that on every play because it seems to confuse the issue more than clarify it in a lot of
The
cases.
one I hate, Defo,
Yeah.
is the one where they have the circles with the numbers on it.
Yeah.
And it's digitally. I'm like, I just saw the play.
Yeah.
I'd rather see the play again
And it's
than
all
tell
circling
me
around.
about it
Yeah.
on the thing that you sold for I don't know how many millions of dollars to whatever company that we have to show.
It's overkill. It just is. Not enough insight into who the players are. You would think that a color analyst would study that a little bit more and maybe give you more of that storyline than just the usual stuff about how he eye pointed the football when we saw he jumped over the guy's back and made the catch there, and that was it.
You mean the 3-hour pregame shows weren't enough?
Oh my God,
insight
6
for you?
guys. Yeah, even with Jimmy. I mean, we love Jimmy, but Jesus.
I don't think they can fit any more guys on that set.
How big is the set? It covers the whole field. I mean, it's unreal.
They should say that though. They should introduce everybody, and then at a side table, we also have.
They do. They
Yeah.
have like more people. I mean, they're
Yeah.
on the field. They're in the locker room.
Yeah.
It's incredible, and yet you get like zero insight into what's actually going to transpire. That is anything unique to what you already knew about the ball game, especially if you were thinking about putting money on it. All right. Preliminary pick, Super Bowl, or too soon for you to make up your mind here, John?
No,
because you have a couple of weeks. So
with all people being closer to healthy,
yeah,
I think I would take Kansas City.
All right.
Early, but I didn't think they were going to get in. I thought Philly would find a way to beat San Francisco at home, but
I thought they would win that
Cincinnati
game. I
was
did.
gonna win.
Yeah. And it looked that way. I mean, for a lot of the second half, you were thinking, "Wow, the momentum is just slowly rolling towards the Cincinnati Bengals." And Jamar Chase and T. Higgins were spectacular in the game. It was weird neither team could run the football, but we'll see what happens. And that'll be the big story, I guess, for the next week or so is injuries. So we'll see a lot of Patrick Mahomes' ankle and a lot of State Farm commercials featuring Patrick. In fact, what isn't Patrick Mahomes hawking at this point? Good guy and represents all that you like about like athletes in general. Seems very humble. Looks like he's just totally loved, by his team where he's the genuine leader. Does all kinds of, magical things on the field. But what isn't he selling? I think I saw him selling gefilte fish, on some Israeli channel. This guy was like, gargling with a jar of gefilte fish. All right. Thanks, John. Always a pleasure, my friend. Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill, bringing you John Congemi and the Pigskin Playbook every week. Lubie's still working on the plans to get down there after the season so we can have our conversation with Jimmy. We love having you on the program as always and being a part of it. And thanks so much for being with us again this week, John Congemi.
Thanks, guys. Talk to you guys soon.
All right, very good. John Congemi. All right, great day, Lubie. Couple of other things. The Joker comes through against Tsitsipas.
You.
So, well, I mean, that seemed like it was going to be pretty apparent, but I would have had Tsitsipas maybe at 20-1 to win the tournament. I was going to take a shot with him. I did think about taking a shot. Certainly had a mind bet on Sabalenka, who won the women's title at the Australian Open, beating Rybakina is how you pronounce the name, or how people are pronouncing it. And good, solid matchup. Two real power hitting, tall drinks of water there on the women's side of things. So, maybe not the most artistic match, but, certainly a nice display of power. The Heat lost to Charlotte. That was kind of a surprise. They've been rolling, right?
It was
All of a sudden, they come in as 6-point favorites on the road, and they get beaten in that game. The Cats had a nice overtime win over the Boston Bruins, who had been sensational, but are mired in a small mini slump all of a sudden. after looking like they were going to easily break the barrier for all records held by the best teams in hockey. Still on track to do a lot of that. And then I saw this horse come on the track for the Pegasus, and I'm going, who the hell is the 6, right? Just before they're going to the gate. And I thought, wow, that horse looks great. I'm a big horse body language guy, as you know, because that crazy person that got carted off to a mental asylum after he had explained how horse body language means everything to us while we were sitting in the MGM Grand Sportsbook betting horses one day. Sprint Rogers was the guy's name. He had a book out that wasn't really published, but he was still trying to get you to read a copy. And he was always pointing out, hey, you got to watch these horses. You can tell certain horses, like athletes, they just look like they're ready to go. So Art Collector, and regardless of odds, I guess went off at 15-1, but looked apart. I almost texted Mayo saying, hey, look at this 6. Looks fucking brilliant, right? And of course, I never made a move on it, and that was that. So won the Pegasus. Luca Panici with our good friend Luca with a big stakes win that day. He won like I guess he won a $200,000 race.
Wow.
On a horse that might be, this was a real good 3-year-old filly that looks like might be bound for the Kentucky Oaks down the road. Very, very impressive. So congratulations to Luca. Some of the things. And his Stetson Bennett story, holy Baker Mayfield, what the hell happened with this guy? I thought he was such a stand-up guy. What's he out getting loaded for?
I don't know. He's a scumbag guy. He can get loaded all he wants, but like the stories about him is that he's a jerk-off.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I don't like him at all. A story like a couple months ago came out where he was at a restaurant, and I guess he's like the king of Georgia.
Yeah.
So before they won the title, and he was shocked when they presented him with the check.
Oh,
and he's
yeah.
like, what is this? They're like,
what is this?
Check.
Sounds like our good friend who's coming up at 12 o'clock, Mike Mayo.
Sounds like Mayo, but worse. At least Mayo does it beforehand. Like,
yeah, no, and Mayo will at least grease
check
somebody.
he's gonna
Yeah,
pay.
yeah.
Like, he looked at them and was like pissed. They're like, what do you mean, sir? It's your check. They're like, you know who I am? They're like, I don't give a hell.
Yeah.
Like, you had like 6 people, and it was like $100 and something bill in some whatever bar. And he's like, I want to talk to the manager. The manager comes over and he's like, I don't pay your bill. Like, what do you mean? So he paid the bill, and he paid like less than 10% tip. And
what a loser.
And the waitress obviously.
How much is he making in name, image, and likeness, you think?
He's doing fine.
Yeah.
And supposedly there's a lot of stories like that where he walks around like he's
like a big champ.
you know he's the guy that's never going to play again ever because he
All
fucking
right.
savage at best.
Only Johnny Manziel, man. What happened with this guy?
Yeah, he's a bitch.
All right. Very good. Louis, Mike Mayo in the lunchbox, 12 o'clock today. And then, you guys are going to be on the road at Shenanigans, right?
Live at Shenanigans, yes, sir.
Okay, and I'll be joining you guys tomorrow at Grandpa's. And I think we're going to be all over the planet this week. Wicked Cheesesteaks,
Yes.
which I enjoy very much, being out there with Brian. And then again, Gulfstream Park, which I think Mike said that nobody had the winning horse, Art Collector.
Well,
So what do? You have like a draw from all the people that had the restaurant?
closest, whoever, like, if someone got second.
Oh,
then
yeah?
the
That's how he's doing it?
Or
Okay.
multiple people got the second. Yeah, that's how he does it. And
Okay, all right. Makes some sense. It's a great thing because you can make up the rules as you go along there. What are you going to complain to, man? The Board of Podcasting?
Yeah, it does.
FCC, I don't think is involved in any kind of regulation here. All right, thanks, guys, for tuning in. A lot of fun. Thanks to John Congemi, Brett Tessler for joining us here on the show. Tomorrow we'll do it again at 7 in the a.m., and then we'll see you at 12 o'clock today with Mike Mayo's Lunchbox for Mike Lubie Lubitz. I'm Jeff DeForest. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll see you next time as we leave you now that.
The time.
It's 9:06.
Let's go to eat a damn snack.
Look what they done to my soul.